The discovery. The vast expanse of space stretched out before the galactic penitentiary, a massive structure that hung suspended in the inky void like a malevolent star. Its smooth, obsidian surface absorbed light rather than reflected it, creating an eerie silhouette against the backdrop of distant galaxies. This was where the most dangerous criminals in the known universe were sent to live out their days, far from the civilizations they had wronged. Within the confines of this cosmic fortress, a group of humans found themselves in a predicament they never could have imagined. They were the first of their species to be imprisoned here, a dubious honor that came with a hefty price tag of isolation and despair. Dr. Elara Winters, a brilliant astrophysicist with a penchant for breaking rules, sat cross-legged on her bunk, her dark eyes fixed on the shimmering force field that served as the door to her cell. Her cellmate, a burly ex-soldier named Marcus "Tank" Thompson, paced back and forth like a caged lion, his heavy footsteps echoing in the confined space. "You're going to wear a hole in the floor if you keep that up," Elara remarked dryly, her gaze never leaving the force field. Tank grunted in response, his broad shoulders tense with pent-up energy. "Better than sitting around doing nothing. We've been here for months, Doc. Months. And we're no closer to finding a way out than we were on day one." Elara's lips quirked into a small smile. "That's where you're wrong, my friend. I've been watching, listening, learning. These aliens think they're so much smarter than us, but they're making one crucial mistake." Tank stopped his pacing. His interest peaked. "Yeah, and what's that?" "They're underestimating human ingenuity," Elara replied, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of mischief and determination. "Come here, I want to show you something." As Tank approached, Elara pointed to the force field. To the naked eye, it appeared to be a solid, impenetrable barrier of energy. But Elara had noticed something peculiar. "Watch closely," she instructed, picking up a small pebble she had managed to pry loose from the cell wall. With precise timing, she tossed it at the force field. Instead of bouncing off or disintegrating, the pebble passed through a tiny section of the field, disappearing into the corridor beyond. Tank's eyes widened in disbelief. How? How is that possible?" Elara grinned, her excitement palpable. "The field isn't constant. It pulses at regular intervals, and for a fraction of a second, there's a weak spot. It's barely noticeable, but it's there. So we can escape through that spot?" Tank asked, hope rising in his voice. Elara shook her head. "Not yet. The gap is too small and too brief for us to squeeze through. But it's a start. It proves that this perfect prison has flaws, and where there's one flaw, there are bound to be others." As if on cue, the cell block's intercom crackled to life. "Attention, prisoners," a monotonous alien voice announced. "It's time for your daily nutrition intake and waste elimination period. Please prepare yourselves." Tank grimaced. Great. Another round of mystery slop and awkward bathroom breaks. But Elara wasn't listening. Her mind was racing, connecting dots that only she could see. "Tank," she said slowly, "I think I just figured out how we're going to get out of here." Over the next few weeks, Elara and Tank began to put their plan into motion. They needed help, and fortunately, they weren't the only humans imprisoned in the galactic penitentiary. During their limited interaction periods, they managed to make contact with other prisoners and recruit them to their cause. There was Zora Chen, a former spy with a talent for hacking and subterfuge. Her nimble fingers and quick mind would be crucial for manipulating the alien technology. Diego Reyes, an engineer with a knack for improvising tools out of seemingly useless objects, joined their ranks as well. And rounding out their team was Dr. Imani Okoro, a xenobiologist whose understanding of alien physiology and behavior would prove invaluable. Together, this unlikely group of humans began to pool their knowledge and resources. Elara's discovery of the force field's weakness was just the beginning. Diego managed to fashion crude tools from the minerals in their food, while Zara worked on decoding the alien language and computer systems during their limited access to the prison's educational terminals. Dr. Okoro's contributions were perhaps the most surprising. She had been studying the behavior of their alien guards, noting patterns in their movements and routines. "They're creatures of habit," she explained during one of their hushed meetings. "More so than humans. They follow the same patterns day in and day out without variation. We can use that predictability against them." As the days turned into weeks, their plan began to take shape. It was daring, perhaps even foolhardy, but it was the only chance they had. The key lay in exploiting not just the physical weaknesses of the prison, but the psychological blind spots of their captors. "They think we're primitive," Ilara said, her voice barely above a whisper as they huddled in a corner during their exercise period. "They see us as nothing more than curious specimens, incapable of understanding their advanced technology. That's their biggest mistake." Tank nodded, his expression grim but determined. "So when do we make our move?" Ilara's eyes gleamed with a mixture of excitement and fear. "Soon. We need to wait for the right moment. A distraction, something to throw off their routines just enough for us to slip through the cracks." As if the universe itself was listening, an opportunity presented itself sooner than they had anticipated. It came in the form of a new prisoner, not a human, but a member of a species known for their psychic abilities. The aliens' attempts to contain this new inmate caused a disruption in the prison's normal operations. Alarms blared, guards rushed about in confusion, and for a brief moment, the usually impenetrable security of the galactic penitentiary wavered. Ilara locked eyes with her companions, a silent understanding passing between them. This was it. Their chance had come. With hearts pounding and adrenaline surging, the small group of humans prepared to launch their daring escape attempt. They had no weapons, no advanced technology, nothing but their wits and the unbreakable human spirit that had carried their species to the stars. As chaos erupted around them, Ilara took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "All right," she said, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her gut. "Let's show these aliens what humans are really capable of." And with that, they stepped into the unknown, ready to challenge the most secure prison in the galaxy, with nothing but human ingenuity as their ally. A great escape. The corridors of the galactic penitentiary echoed with the wail of alarms and the thunderous footsteps of guards rushing to contain the psychic prisoner. Amidst the chaos, 5 humans slipped out of their cells, their hearts pounding in their chests as they put their meticulously crafted plan into action. Ilara led the way, her keen eyes searching for the telltale shimmer of the force field's weak spot. Tank brought up the rear, his muscular frame tensed and ready for action. Between them, Zara, Diego, and Dr. Okoro moved with purpose, each ready to play their crucial role in this high-stakes gambit. "Remember," Ilara whispered as they approached the first major obstacle, a security checkpoint manned by towering, multi-limbed alien guards. "We're invisible as long as we believe we are. They're not looking for us. They're not expecting us. We're nothing but shadows." Dr. Okoro nodded, her eyes fixed on the guards. "Their attention is divided. The psychic prisoner is wreaking havoc in the East Wing. We have maybe 5 minutes before they realize something's amiss here." Zara stepped forward, a small device cobbled together from scavenged parts clutched in her hand. "Let's make those 5 minutes count," she murmured, her fingers dancing over the makeshift control panel. The security terminal before them flickered, alien symbols scrolling across the screen at a dizzying pace. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft hiss, the doors slid open. "I'll be damned," Tank breathed, a grin spreading across his face. It actually worked. They slipped through the checkpoint, their movements careful and deliberate. So far, their audacious plan was unfolding perfectly. But they all knew that in a prison of this magnitude, perfection was a luxury they couldn't count on for long. Their first major setback came 3 levels down, in a vast chamber filled with humming machinery. Diego had theorized that this was the prison's power core, and disabling it was crucial to their escape. But as they entered the room, they found themselves face to face with something they hadn't anticipated. A repair crew of aliens, their multiple eyes widening in surprise at the sight of the escaped humans. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then, chaos erupted. Tank moved with surprising speed for a man his size, barreling into the nearest alien and sending it flying. Zara and Diego sprinted for the control panels, their fingers flying over the alien interfaces as they attempted to overload the system. Dr. Okoro found herself grappling with a spindly alien technician, her xenobiology knowledge allowing her to target vulnerable pressure points. "The ocular cluster," she shouted to the others. "Hit them in the ocular cluster." Ilara, meanwhile, was frantically trying to seal the doors, knowing that their window of opportunity was rapidly closing. "Hurry," she called out, her voice tight with tension. "We got maybe 2 minutes before this place is swarming with guards." The alien shouts of alarm mixed with the ever-present wail of sirens, creating a cacophony of noise that set every nerve on edge. But slowly, inexorably, the humans began to gain the upper hand. With a triumphant cry, Diego managed to initiate the power core's overload sequence. "It's done," he yelled over the din. "This whole section is going to go dark in 60 seconds. They ran, their legs pumping furiously as they sprinted through the labyrinthine corridors of the prison. Behind them, they could hear the angry shouts of guards and the ominous hum of energy weapons powering up. Just as they rounded a corner, the lights flickered and died, plunging the entire section into darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. "Now what?" Tank panted, his massive frame heaving with exertion. Ilara's mind raced, calculating possibilities and probabilities at lightning speed. "The docking bay," she said finally. "If we can get to a ship, we might have a chance." It was a long shot, and they all knew it. But in a situation like this, even the slimmest chance was better than none at all. They pressed on, navigating the twisting corridors by memory and instinct. Every shadow held the potential for danger. Every sound could be the approach of guards. The stress was palpable, a living thing that threatened to overwhelm them at any moment. But these were humans, the descendants of explorers and pioneers who had faced the unknown terrors of space with nothing but courage and determination. They would not be broken so easily. As they neared the docking bay, their luck finally ran out. A squadron of guards rounded the corner, their energy weapons humming with lethal intent. "Surrender, humans," the lead guard bellowed, its voice a guttural growl that echoed off the metal walls. For a moment, it seemed as though their daring escape had come to a premature end. But then something unexpected happened, something that would later be hailed as a turning point in human-alien relations. Dr. Okoro stepped forward, her hands raised in a gesture of peace, and then, to the astonishment of everyone present, she began to speak in the alien's own language, a complex series of clicks, whistles, and rumbles that she had painstakingly learned during her captivity. The guards faltered, their weapons lowering slightly as confusion replaced aggression. Dr. Okoro spoke rapidly, gesturing to her fellow humans, and then to the stars visible through a nearby viewport. "What's she saying?" Tank whispered, his body tensed for action. Ilara shook her head, her eyes wide with wonder. "I have no idea, but whatever it is, I think it's working." Indeed, the aliens seemed to be listening intently, their postures relaxing as Dr. Okoro continued her impassioned speech. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the lead guard stepped forward. "You are not what we expected," it said haltingly in the human language. Perhaps we have made an error in judgment." Hope, fragile but undeniable, began to bloom in the hearts of the escaped prisoners. They weren't out of danger yet, not by a long shot. But in that moment, standing before their former captors, they realized that they had accomplished something far greater than a mere prison break. They had shattered preconceptions, challenged assumptions, and opened the door to a new understanding between species, And as they stood there, poised on the brink between captivity and freedom, they knew that whatever came next, the universe would never be quite the same again. There were creatures that seemed to be made of living crystal, others that floated on clouds of gas, and still others whose forms seemed to shift and change even as she watched. At their head was a being that could only be described as regal tall, with iridescent scales and eyes that held the wisdom of millennia. "Greetings, representatives of Earth," the being said, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. "I am High Counselor Xyrax. We have much to discuss." What followed was a meeting unlike any in human history. For hours, they talked, debated, and negotiated. Ilara and her team presented their case, not just for themselves, but for humanity as a whole. They spoke of Earth's history, its triumphs and its failures, its potential and its flaws. Dr. Okoro's xenobiological knowledge proved invaluable, allowing her to address concerns about human biology and psychology. Zara and Diego dazzled the council with demonstrations of human ingenuity, showing how they had adapted alien technology in ways its creators had never imagined. And through it all, Tank stood as a silent guardian, his presence a reminder of humanity's strength and resilience. As the meeting drew to a close, High Counselor Xyrax rose, its scales shimmering in the starlight that streamed through the viewport. "We have heard your words," it said, its mental voice echoing in their minds. "And we have seen your actions. You have shown us that there is more to humanity than we had believed. Your species is young, yes, and in many ways untested, but you have potential that we would be foolish to ignore." Ilara held her breath, hardly daring to hope. "Therefore," Xyrax continued, "it is the decision of this council to extend an invitation to Earth, not as subjects, not as prisoners, but as potential allies. We offer you the chance to join the galactic community, to learn from us as we learn from you." The humans exchanged glances, a mix of shock, joy, and trepidation on their faces. This was more than they had ever dared to hope for. However, Xyrax added, a note of caution in its mental voice, "This is not a decision we can make for your entire species. You must return to Earth, share what you have learned, and allow your people to choose their own path." Ilara stepped forward, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "High Counselor, members of the Galactic Council, we thank you for this opportunity. We cannot speak for all of humanity, but we can promise you this: we will carry your message to Earth. We will share the wonders we have seen and the knowledge we have gained, and we will do everything in our power to ensure that when humanity does join the galactic community, we do so as friends and allies." As they prepared to depart, their heads spinning with the magnitude of what had just transpired, Ilara felt a gentle touch on her arm. She turned to find Sixtkull, the alien who had once been their jailer and was now something approaching a friend. "You have done well, Ilara Winters," Sixtkull said, its multifaceted eyes gleaming. "You and your companions have changed the course of galactic history. Whatever comes next, know that you have earned the respect of the stars themselves." As their ship detached from the council vessel and set a course for Earth, Ilara joined her friends at the viewport. Their home planet was still months away, a tiny blue marble lost in the vastness of space. But as they stared out at the star-speckled void, they knew that they were carrying with them the key to humanity's future. They had gone into space as prisoners, escaped as fugitives, and were returning as ambassadors. The road ahead would not be easy, convincing Earth's governments to trust their story, preparing humanity for the reality of a wider galactic community, navigating the complex waters of interstellar politics, but they were ready for the challenge. As the first streaks of faster-than-light travel began to paint the viewport, Ilara felt a sense of profound gratitude wash over her. They had set out to free themselves from an alien prison, but in doing so, they had freed humanity from the prison of isolation in the cosmos. The stars had once seemed cold and distant. Now they beckoned with the promise of adventure, knowledge, and a future brighter than they had ever imagined. As Earth's unlikely ambassadors, Ilara and her companions had taken the first step on humanity's greatest journey. The universe, in all its vast and mysterious glory, awaited. The journey that had begun in the cold confines of an alien cell was far from over. But with their wits, their courage, and their unwavering human spirit, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The stars beckoned, and this time they would meet them not as prisoners, but as ambassadors of their species, proof that even in the darkest of circumstances, humanity's light could never truly be extinguished. The aftermath. The sleek alien vessel cut through the star-studded void, its engines humming with a power that still amazed its human passengers. It had been 3 standard galactic weeks since their daring escape from the galactic penitentiary, and the reality of their situation was still sinking in. Ilara stood at the ship's viewport, her dark eyes reflecting the distant pinpricks of light. Behind her, the others went about their tasks. Tank familiarizing himself with the ship's defensive systems, Zara and Diego poring over the alien technology, and Dr. Okoro continuing her study of xenobiology with their unexpected allies. Yes, allies. That was perhaps the most surprising outcome of their escape. What had started as a desperate bid for freedom had evolved into something far more complex and potentially world-changing. Still hard to believe, isn't it? Tank's deep voice broke through Ilara's reverie. She turned to find him standing beside her, his hulking frame dwarfing her own. Ilara nodded, a wry smile tugging at her lips. If someone had told me a month ago that we'd be zooming through space in an alien ship, with the very guards who once imprisoned us now acting as our escorts, I'd have said they were crazy. Tank chuckled, the sound rumbling in his chest. Life's funny that way. One minute you're rotting in a cell, the next you're a damn diplomat. Indeed, their status had changed dramatically in the wake of their escape attempt. Dr. Okoro's impassioned speech, delivered in the aliens' own language, had done more than just save their lives. It had opened the eyes of their captors to the true nature of humanity, resourceful, adaptable, and capable of far more than they had been given credit for. The alien leader, a being called Zixtkul, had made the unprecedented decision to release them, not as prisoners, but as representatives of their species. It was a gamble, one that had sent shockwaves through the galactic political system. But it was a gamble that might just pay off for both species. Commander Winters, a melodious alien voice, chimed over the ship's intercom. We're approaching the rendezvous point. The Galactic Council representatives will be arriving shortly. Ilara took a deep breath, straightening her makeshift uniform, a curious blend of human and alien design. Thank you, Thyleth. We'll be ready. As she and Tank made their way to the ship's conference room, Ilara couldn't help but marvel at how quickly things had changed. In the span of a few short weeks, they had gone from being considered dangerous criminals to potential allies in a vast interstellar community. The conference room was a flurry of activity when they arrived. Zara was making last-minute adjustments to the translation devices they had cobbled together, while Diego double-checked the holographic displays. Dr. Okoro stood to one side, deep in conversation with Zixtkul, their alien words flowing back and forth in a rhythmic cadence. Everyone ready? Ilara asked, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. This meeting could determine not just their fate, but potentially the fate of humanity as a whole. Nods and affirmations came from around the room. They were as prepared as they could be, given the circumstances. The ship shuddered slightly as it docked with a much larger Galactic Council vessel. Moments later, the airlock hissed open, revealing a delegation of beings so diverse and alien that it took Ilara's breath away.